Happy Thursday, everyone. You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Yasmin Ranea here in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Let's get to your top stories. NDP leader David Eby released his party's full election platform this morning in Surrey. It includes a $1,000 grocery rebate, allowing pets in purpose-built rentals, free off-peak transit for seniors, and the province's first addictions treatment center specifically for construction workers, along with supports for families.
Our platform also includes an expansion of before and after school care, affordable before and after school care across the entire province, using existing school buildings, using existing educational assistant staff, ensuring that we're able to do two things: deploy this really quickly so it actually makes a difference in your life. Parents' jobs don't start at 9 and end at 3. They need that support before and after school with childcare.
Other platform commitments include building 300,000 affordable homes, finding a family doctor for everybody in BC, building more hospitals, and ensuring safer streets by giving police more powers to fight gangs. Meanwhile, BC's Conservative Party is promising a long list of capital projects as part of its infrastructure and transportation plan this morning. It includes a new bridge across Okanagan Lake, rebuilding the Red Bridge in Kamloops that recently burned down, expanding the Patello Bridge to 6 lanes, and replacing the George Massey Tunnel.
And of course, the big one that needs to be done is that Highway 1 is becoming a parking lot for too long during the day. We're going to make sure that it's 6 lanes all the way out to Chilliwack. It's a critical link for us as a province, for the lower mainland, to the rest of the province and to the rest of the country. It desperately needs to be done.
On transit, Rustad is proposing extending the SkyTrain to Newton in Surrey while committing to fully funding TransLink for 2 years. Well, food delivery company DoorDash says it's increasing fees in BC. It says it's doing this because provincial regulations require it to pay workers more. Starting this month, a new fee of 99 cents for restaurant delivery orders and up to $2.99 for all other delivery orders will be added. DoorDash says the regulations are significantly increasing its operating costs, and it says the new guaranteed wage of $20.88 per hour while out on delivery is higher than the regular minimum wage in BC. Well, the Centre for Whale Research says the endangered southern resident killer whale population off the coast of BC and Washington state has lost 3 members since last year. The total population is at 73, not including a new calf born after the survey.
It is concerning to see, just for the state of the population, with kind of this number of 73, that's quite low. And so we obviously want to see births that are very healthy and that survive for the long term. But with the lack of food and with all these other factors, it's just making it really hard for them to have viable calves.
The research says survival rates of southern resident killer whales are closely linked to Chinook salmon populations. Michelin is set to unveil its latest Vancouver guide at a ceremony tonight, with new culinary gems added to its prestigious list. The renowned restaurant rating system recognizes establishments offering exceptional dining experiences. Right now, there are 9 Vancouver restaurants that boast 1 Michelin star. And those are your top stories right now. I'm Yasmin Ranea. You're watching CBC News BC. Don't go anywhere. BC Today with Michelle Elliott is up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. The BC NDP have just released their election platform. Like the Greens and Conservatives, they're thinking about affordability. We'll get a breakdown of the party promises on that front, and we'll take your calls as well. Which plan will work for you? Later in the show, we'll meet two teen scientists who have just won big at an international STEM competition. Listen to this. One of the projects translates sign language into spoken language, and the other is a new therapy for cystic fibrosis. They'll tell us all about it coming up. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. This morning, the NDP released its party platform. It includes spending to expand BC's addictions treatment, invest in the school system, and spur housing construction. Now, this follows an announcement this morning from the BC Conservatives around small business, and yesterday promising to privatize basic auto insurance and allow lawsuits in cases with life-altering injuries. Meanwhile, the BC Green Party released its platform on Tuesday, and part of it promises free public transit, an increase in social assistance, and a top-up for education and childcare. For more details comparing each of the party platforms, you can go to our website and look at our interactive tool. That is cbc.ca/BC. And we're taking your calls this hour on the show. How will affordability factor into your vote in this provincial election? And which party best addresses your affordability concerns? Is there something that you're liking, that you're hearing from one of the parties? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email us at bctoday@cbc.ca. And Katie DeRosa is CBC's provincial affairs reporter. She was at the NDP platform announcement this morning in Victoria. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Michelle. Actually, it was in Surrey, so I was not physically there, but we were listening. And I think just to be transparent, I think the big takeaway is, it was really a grab bag of promises, no big showstoppers, but some things that people would be interested in, such as a promise to fully integrate before and after school care into all BC schools. There was a pilot program for 3 schools that's going on right now, but the Premier or NDP leader, David Eby, is promising to expand that, but no details on how much that will cost, how many EAs have to be hired to do that, and how quickly that would happen. So a bit vague on that. Other promises such as to ban rental buildings from banning pets, a bigger fine for people who speed in luxury cars, that the fine would be tied to how valuable their car is. Another promise to create an addiction treatment center specifically for construction workers, who make up 1 in 5 of overdose deaths. So promises like that. And again, the NDP highlighting its $1,000 a year tax rebate for middle-income families. But the BC Conservatives tried to upstage that this morning with Rustad announcing a tax cut for small businesses of 50, basically cutting in half down to 1%. So he was trying to compete with Eby's platform this morning.
Okay. And so competing with each other, how do the platforms compare on that affordability question? Because it is such a big one in this election.
Right. So what Eby is saying is the $1,000 tax cut for middle-income families. He said that will benefit 90% of people, and he says that sets himself apart from the Conservatives because their plan comes in next year. So he says immediate relief, whereas he says Rustad's plan will not be fully built out till 2029. Rustad responded to that by saying that he had to scale up the program because BC is in a $9 billion deficit caused by Eby, so he has to be fiscally prudent. So Rustad today said the NDP is shoveling money out the door, no plans to get back to a balanced budget. He promised to return the province to a balanced budget within 2 terms of a Conservative government. And again, highlighting that he feels like his Rustad rebate is the better option, and comparing the BC Greens, who would keep the carbon tax but would increase the rebate that people get through the climate action tax credit. So they're saying they would give more money back to middle and lower income British Columbians through that, and they would also double social assistance and disability rates.
And speaking of competition, Katie, yesterday the BC Conservatives announced they would allow competition for basic insurance in BC. Tell us about that ICBC as an election issue, according to the Conservatives.
Yeah, so basically what John Rustad says is that he would end the ICBC monopoly, allow private companies to come into the market to create competition. He would also end no-fault insurance for life-altering injuries. He says that for more minor injuries, there still would be no-fault insurance, and so you can't sue. So he says that's about 95% of cases. But for individuals who are very severely injured, about 15% of cases, they would have the ability to sue. Now, some critics have said that bringing lawyers back into the equation would just increase auto rates. And they also pointed to Alberta and Ontario, who have private auto insurance companies, and their rates are higher. So David Eby says that he believes this is a flawed plan, and it's based on trial lawyers wanting back into the game. So there's a lot of debate as to whether that's the right call, but certainly that's where Rustad is staking his claim on auto insurance.
Okay, Katie DeRosa is our guest. She's, of course, our provincial affairs reporter, joining me from Victoria. And meanwhile, the NDP platform release was in Surrey. Thank you for that, Katie. Let's take a call while we have Katie on the line. And Tamara is joining us from Caslo. We are asking you, how will affordability factor into your vote in this election? And which party do you think best addresses your affordability concerns? Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And hello, Tamara. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my call.
Sure. And what do you think about how does affordability factor for you?
Well, the way I'm looking at it right now is that it's very understandable that people have immediate affordability concerns, and so much more of that in the short term is due to equity issues rather than because there's so much wealth to go around, but it's very, very concentrated at the top of the scale. And then even maybe at least as important as that is I'm looking at which party actually has a viable climate action plan, because climate change is going to be so much more expensive. It already is costing billions of dollars each year to BC just in facing the costs of some of the unnatural disasters. And as far as I'm concerned, the Green Party is the only party that has a viable climate plan at all. The NDP has really, they'd like to present themselves as climate leaders, but the reality is that they're still subsidizing fracking. And that does not give a future for my kids, and it won't be affordable for anyone.
Tamara, thank you very much for that. And you talk about the cost of the impacts of climate change. According to the NDP, the responding to wildfires across the province added $886 million to the provincial budget, which has added to the record deficit that BC is facing. Thank you very much for your call. And Marco is on the line now in Cumberland. Hi, Marco.
Hi, how you doing?
I am well. How does affordability factor in for you?
Well, I guess how does it factor is more about what about all these claims of giving back money that they're just going to end up taking from us down the road. So where does $1,000 come from that they can just hand out to each person? The fact that the NDP's already created a huge deficit, doesn't that mean that we're just going to end up having to pay more sales tax, more tax in general? And that basically then affects the affordability for everyone. So it's this whole give.
Who's going to pay for it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm having to pay in the end. And really, does that seem like good governance? And does that seem even like ethical to be just basically putting this carrot out there? Like where does the NDP really stand behind this? How do they really present this as a viable option? That's my question.
Yeah, good. Marco, thank you very much. It's a good question. And this is the annual tax cut that's being proposed by the NDP, $1,000 for the average family, he says, starting next year if they are elected. And Katie, what have been the questions around and the responses around the question of how are you going to pay for these?
Well, I know Eby's been asked that quite a bit, and he keeps saying now is not the time to cut. He says people need that relief. Rustad, however, in response today, for example, he said that if he becomes the premier with a Conservative government, he would do a taxpayer responsibility audit. So basically any program that could be government waste, he would look into and perhaps cut it. And he also said that any new taxes would basically have to be looked at. He wouldn't just introduce introduce new taxes randomly. And he also said that he would create a ministry for red tape reduction. So really, Rustad focusing a lot more on getting the government out of the way. But in response, David Eby saying the government is needed to intervene in the housing market in areas where the market has driven up costs. And about the question about equity, Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau has said that a lot of the underlying challenges in our community, public safety, homelessness, are caused by inequality in our communities. And so by lifting people up with those higher social assistance rates, with housing, she basically committed to ending homelessness by giving homes to everyone on the street. She said those would solve some of the larger social issues that we're facing, social disorders. So, but again, that costs money. So that is the big question: is how do the parties pay for their promises?
And on the Greens, the biggest expense is this promise of free public transit. And tell us about that. What was the thinking behind it? How did the Greens talk about that on Tuesday?
Well, again, Sonia Furstenau was saying that transit, again, is an equity issue. If people are low income, they have to get to work. They might have to get to work early, and they need reliable transit. So she also said they would double the existing transit lines, but we know that TransLink is in a funding crunch. They're facing a $600 million a year shortfall. So again, they are struggling, and something, again, Rust had proposed is an audit of TransLink's funding. He also, again, did propose new transit investments, but again, without a price tag. So another example of some of these promises in the election cycle that really need a price tag to understand where the money is coming from. But certainly a lot of focus on transit from all the parties. Again, the Conservatives promising a new transit line from including the bringing the SkyTrain to Surrey Newton. So that's a new promise. But again, the Greens are saying that there's rural communities that are really being left behind. So not just the urban centers, but people in the outlying areas who just basically have no transit at all. So again, they're trying to say that in order for people to get to their jobs, we need to improve the transit system.
Transit, a big issue in this election, it seems like, especially this week. We spoke with the Metro Vancouver Mayor's Council Chair yesterday, Brad West, on the show as well, looking for that ongoing continued funding for TransLink. Katie DeRosa is with me, our provincial affairs reporter here, and you're with BC Today. We are taking your calls and asking you, how will affordability fit into how you cast your vote? And is there a party that you think is addressing your affordability concerns? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And Maya is on the line now in Vancouver. Hi, Maya. Welcome.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you.
Sure. And what are you thinking around affordability?
As I mentioned to your screener, the person on the phone, I said my family we're gonna vote Conservative this year. The appealing point of the Conservative proposal is the tax cuts on the small businesses. My husband and I, we own businesses, and this is important to us. And of course, no party is perfect, and everybody's promising, and we'll keep them accountable. And if it doesn't work next election, we'll vote something else. But that's what appeals to me. And also the other point, I'm looking at the privatizing of the ICBC is very unaffordable for us. I mean, we own 2 vehicles because when you need them, and even with really good driving records, the insurance payments are quite high. And I think we have, I remember 10 years ago wasn't that the case. So that's something that's important to us. And I hope, I didn't get who is going to do something about teachers, which I'm sorry, asking this question, NDP or Conservative, because I just had a meeting with my daughter's classroom teacher, and there are absolute shortage of teachers. And that really is important to me. But I still have to educate myself, just on the top of what I understand so far. That's what we're inclining to vote.
Maya, those are all really good questions. I want to ask you as well, you say you're a small business owner. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you faced?
Obviously, the inflation, everything is very expensive, and we need to, keep up with the inflation. We own a home, which was fortunate. We also wanted to rent. The other point that really, really is taken away, we have a whole floor in our home that we want to rent. But hearing the horrible stories that renters don't want to leave the premises after, because we might use that, space for us, we're holding it. We're just not renting it.
Or you need to show proof, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a friend that could not get the tenants out, give them 6 months, and then he had to pay them money to get them out of, because he sold the home.
Okay.
So we're frightened, and we want to rent, we want to rent reasonably, and I believe if something gets done, a lot of people will open their homes and rent, and that's how we're going to get the rent more affordable. Because I think
obstacles to being able to rent out as well, as for landlords. Maya, thank you very much. She's brought up a lot of interesting points there, and she talked about the small business tax cut, Katie, that of course was announced this morning. What was the Conservative leader, John Rustad, was speaking in front of the Builders Association, Construction Builders Association. And so what has been the discussion around that small business tax cut?
Well, yeah, John Rustad was saying that small businesses are struggling with crime, with vandalism, and that they need a leg up. So, a 1% tax cut does sound very, very appealing, but it's 2%. So it's a reduction. But again, as I said, he didn't have a cost figure for that. But certainly that's something that I'm sure small businesses, which are still struggling from the fallout from COVID, from, affordability challenges like higher rent, I'm sure they would welcome. And actually, I want to mention on the landlords that the caller mentioning, the David Eby did have something that he said he thinks would encourage people like mom and pop landlords to rent out their suites. He said that the NDP, if they were elected again, would have a subsidized insurance so that people had missed payments, if they had damage, that they could recoup that through the insurance. So that was sort of his answer to people like Maya who say they're reluctant to rent out their suites, because he said a lot of people have laneway homes and basement suites that aren't being rented that could help with the housing crisis, but they need a bit of help to convince them to be landlords, which is a fair enough comment.
Certainly been a question over the last couple of years. How do you convert those units perhaps that have been used as short-term rentals into long-term? Are you okay to stick around for a couple more minutes, Katie?
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take another call here from Robert at Brentwood Bay. Hi, Robert.
Oh, good day. Yes, I was calling. I agree with most of what your first caller said. Tamara, I believe her name was.
Mm-hmm.
The most important issue, I think, facing our province and the country and the world is the climate change issue. And I really object, the Conservatives, both provincially and federally, some of them are in absolute denial about climate change, and they're threatening to roll back measures already taken to reduce the effects and the cause of climate change. I really think the Conservatives just want to put their head in the sand and try to ignore it. And I realize that ostriches don't really do that, but Conservatives do.
What do you make of the NDP also saying they would remove the consumer carbon tax if the federal requirement was repealed?
I think it's scurrilous. I'm sorry, but it's a half-hearted attempt to appeal to voters who disagree with the carbon tax. Although the actual statistics show that it is working to reduce carbon pollution, and there's better ways to deal with it. Also, the thing about the car insurance. Does anybody remember what a dumpster fire it was under the Liberals? Or Conservatives. They were using
the Liberals. You mean? Are you talking about
the Liberals, which the current Conservative leader and most of the Conservative candidates, I believe, formerly belonged to that party or the United. It's just a name change.
Yeah, Robert, thank you very much. And of course, that dumpster fire term, I think it was David Eby who was one of the first users or coined that term in referring to the finances over at ICBC. What have we learned, Katie, from the Conservatives when it comes to how they would tackle climate change?
Well, actually, during the debate yesterday, the radio debate during the CKNW debate, Sonia First Note challenged Rustad. Basically, she said all of his policies involve scrapping any kind of climate action that we've had. And Rustad had previously said that, for example, to save money, he would cut Clean BC and other, what he called them, pet projects that he says are hamstringing or tying the hands of corporations and companies, that it adds another layer of cost to them. He also said he would get rid of low energy requirements for new buildings. But yesterday in the debate, he was challenged. David Eby said John Rustad thinks climate change is a hoax. He said, I think climate change is real. And Sonia Furstenau rebutted, saying, well, if you think climate change is real, you're doing a lot to roll out the carpet for the fossil fuel industry. So that was a bit of the exchange yesterday. We will see more of that debate on October 8th when the leaders square off on television. But certainly, John Rustad has come under criticism for his position on climate change. There was a video surfaced where he said that climate change is a method to control our population and shrink our population. So some of his comments about climate change have been used by his opposition rivals to portray him as a climate denialist. And again, he denies that the case, but he says that these climate measures are making life more affordable through the carbon tax and through emission standards for companies, and he wants to get rid of that.
Or unaffordable. What are, just in our last 30 seconds here, what are the latest polls telling us?
Well, yesterday there was a Ledger poll that showed the Conservatives actually eclipsing the BC NDP by 3 points. So obviously that's got to have the NDP, scrambling to increase its message and to come out with promises that will hit home with people. So again, I think it is interesting to see how quickly the Conservatives have risen. And I definitely think on some of the public safety issues, they are, speaking to people who are frustrated, especially like the caller, the business owners who are saying they feel like they're not being heard. So that is something for the next 2 weeks of the election that the leaders will have to tackle.
And they can tackle that amongst each other on the debate, at the debate on Tuesday. Katie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle.
That's CBC's Katie DeRosa. It's now 12:28 here on BC Today. And yesterday, we did ask you what public transit needs you want addressed in this election. We heard from Metro Vancouver Mayor's Council Chair Brad West, and the council says transit needs to be a bigger issue in this campaign. They're demanding more funding for TransLink beyond the next year or so. And so here are some of your emails. Nick writes, I think Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley would benefit from an expanded network of commuter rail, like the West Coast Express, using existing railroad corridors to reach more people over a greater area. Often I see vehicle traffic snarled on the highways, and a passing freight train moves faster than our cars. And Jackie writes, is the current situation not the chickens coming home to roost after the public said no to the 2015 transit referendum? All the experts said that not providing a clear funding source would cripple the transit system. So does Mayor West have any idea what the funding path should be? Jim writes from Main Island, there's no road tax that drivers pay. The gas taxes that they do pay does not come close to paying for all the roads, infrastructure, pollution, health, and casualties caused by motor vehicles. All taxpayers fund that and will not pay to mitigate the billions that climate change is already costing. We all subsidize motorists and their choices. Douglas writes, dealing with Canadian overshoot regarding addiction to single occupancy vehicles must be the first priority. So fast, frequent, and free transit is a fundamental solution. Thanks so much for all of your emails. You can send them to bctoday@cbc.ca. And yes, tune in to the Leaders Debate next Tuesday, October 8th at 6:30 p.m. 12:30 now. You're with BC Today here on CBC Radio, television, and live streaming as well. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for being with us. And we are taking your calls on the BC election and affordability as an issue. How will affordability factor into your vote? And is there a party that is addressing your affordability concerns? We are taking your calls. Again, our numbers, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. We'll get to Ben in Maple Ridge coming up after this CBC News Update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. As you've been hearing on the show, the BC NDP has unveiled its complete election platform. The platform includes commitments to provide a $1,000 middle-class tax cut, building 300,000 affordable homes, and finding a family doctor for everyone in the province. Meanwhile, BC Conservative leader John Rustad made big promises for infrastructure here in the Lower Mainland. Speaking from the Construction Innovation Summit, he says his party will make Highway 1 to 6 lanes all the way to Chilliwack and expand capacity for the Patello and Ironworkers bridges. And the BC Supreme Court will not grant an injunction to stop tree removal in Stanley Park. In a ruling, the court dismissed an application to halt the removal of thousands of trees due to a looper moth infestation. The legal challenge filed by a group of 4 park users argues the City of Vancouver and the Park Board were negligent in authorizing the work, saying the park's degradation has caused them stress, anxiety, and sadness. And now the forecast on the North Coast. Periods of rain this afternoon with a high of 9. Highs up to 12 with increasing cloudiness in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, mainly cloudy with a high of 12 as well. Highs from 13 to 16 with sunshine in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, mainly sunny with a high of 17. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, lots of sunshine this afternoon with highs up to 18 degrees. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Thank you so much, Rob.
You're welcome.
It's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Thanks for being with us here on BC Today on CBC Radio 1. And coming up later this afternoon on the Coast, here's what you can hear with Gloria Makarenko.
Michelle, hi there. It's Gloria Makarenko here, and I'd love for you to join us on the Coast this afternoon. It's Thursday, so our Soapbox Social panel, Mo, Amir, and Kyla Lee, they're going to be here. I wonder what they're going to be talking about. Well, of course, they have been tracking all the latest movement in the BC election campaign, so we'll hear what they have to say about it all. Also, Friday night at the Chan Centre, an extraordinary event that pairs Tobique singer Jeremy Dutcher and renowned Abenaki filmmaker and musician Alanis Obomsawin. So Obomsawin is going to be offering a rare live performance of her acclaimed album Bush Lady. So she is going to join me in studio this afternoon. Really looking forward to that conversation. So I hope you can join us between 3 and 6 for On the Coast.
Thanks for being with us here on BC Today. We are asking you, in light of the BC election, how will affordability factor into your vote? And is there a party that is addressing your affordability concerns? Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. We're taking your emails as well, and that's bctoday@cbc.ca. You heard earlier from our provincial affairs reporter, Katie DeRosa. She was covering the release of the NDP's platform this morning. It includes before and after school daycare integrated into the school system. And here's David Eby speaking this morning.
Our platform also includes an expansion of before and after school care, affordable before and after school care across the entire province, using existing school buildings, using existing educational assistant staff, ensuring that we're able to do 2 things. Deploy this really quickly so it actually makes a difference in your life. Parents' jobs don't start at 9 and end at 3. They need that support before and after school with childcare. And we're going to make sure we deliver that based on a successful model we've deployed already at 4 different school boards in the province.
And meanwhile, BC Conservative leaders spoke at a summit held by the Independent Contractors and Business Association this morning. As you heard, he announced a small business tax cut of 1% rather, and cutting it in half. And here's some more of what he said about taxes in BC.
We need to change how we go forward. We can't be treating people in this province as piggy banks. That means that we are going to commit to having a piece of legislation put forward that says there can be no new taxes or no increased taxes except by referendum. If government needs the additional money, they have to go to the taxpayer either through an election or through a referendum and ask for the money and let the people decide whether or not government should have that additional money to provide those services.
And BC Green leader Sonia Furstenau spoke on Tuesday as she released her party's platform. And here's what she had to say on housing.
On housing, we identify the need, number one, for immediate vacancy control to prevent the incentive of evicting people so that rents can go up again. And number two, to make an historic investment in non-market housing so that we create that supply of truly affordable, truly non-market housing that is protected from these forces that have enormous wealth and capital.
That's BC Green leader Sonia Furstenau. And just to make sure I'm clear, the Conservative announcement on a small business tax was to reduce it to 1%, and that was announced this morning. Let's take some more of your calls on the affordability question. How is it going to factor into how you cast your ballot? And do you see something from any of the parties that is addressing your needs? Ben is joining us from Maple Ridge. Hi, Ben. Welcome.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for squeezing me in.
Sure.
I've been following this, and there's a lot of promises being made, as with every election. And for the most part, each party has got some good things that they're saying. Whether or not it's actually going to come through to fruition is another matter. The biggest thing for me right now is this whole dumpster fire that continues with ICBC. This whole no-fault insurance thing, if people actually understood what it meant for them if they were involved in a collision, they would have never, ever said yes to this in a million years. ICBC has told me now that there's only 2 conditions in which they actually issue a settlement. And the first one is you literally have to lose a limb. The second one is if you are not able to return to your former job or employment, whatever that is. For me, I've been dealing with them for almost 3 years now. And for a company that says, we're here to help, they are not. It is completely one-sided. And to the point, I cannot even obtain legal counsel to ask them simple questions like, is this a good offer? Like, is this fair? They've completely taken that away from every person in British Columbia.
This is the turn to no fault, yeah.
And I'm standing in a place where I would happily pay the old premiums to be able to sue the pants off of the 2 people that ran into me, rode off my vehicles, caused me all this hurt and suffering for years now. All the specialists that I'm seeing are telling me that I'm probably going to be having lifelong issues with the pain management, range of motion, and all this stuff. So I'm sorry, but NDP, they do have some good points they've brought to the forefront, but because they're the ones that brought this no fault upon all BC residents, there is no way I can give those guys my vote.
And the Conservatives, Ben, are saying one part of their announcement on auto insurance was to allow competition on basic auto insurance, and also saying they would restore accident victims' rights to fair representation for life-altering injuries. How far does that go for you?
Well, that remains to be seen. I have to get an MRI next month, and when I meet back up with the surgeon to discuss the results, he's going to tell me at that point whether a surgery can fix my issues or not. And if it doesn't, I'm not going to be able to return to my former employment, and that's a pretty big problem for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your experience, Ben.
Me too.
Okay. Thank you very much for calling and sharing that.
Thanks, Michelle.
That's Ben in Maple Ridge. And Val is on the line now in New Westminster. Hi there, Val.
Hi, Michelle. Sorry. Yes, I think it's just critically important that we stay the course in terms of re-electing the NDP government. And I think it's very ironic that the public keeps screaming for help, for more money being spent, or that too much money is being spent for programs and services, when that's what we all ask for. I think the healthcare program or the healthcare system we live under is magnificent. We would, in other countries, be paying all the way for our services, and on and on. I think our the safety in the streets. I think the NDP is doing everything they can do to try to better that program. And I'm very concerned that Rostad, everybody complains about the money that's being spent. They ask for programs, we ask for services, and the government comes forward with programs to repair, and then the opposition complains about it. I don't get it. I think that David Eby and the NDP government currently are doing a fantastic job. They're compassionate, they care, they're trying to instill programs and services that are for the betterment of the population. So I think it's really important that we remember we pay taxes for services, and I'm willing and ready to pay for those services.
Val, thank you for calling as well. That's okay. Val, take care in New Westminster. And Remy is on the line in Summerland. Thanks so much for I think you've taken a moment from work, Remy. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, tell us about affordability and what weight it holds for you as you think about who to vote for.
Well, sure thing. Well, I'm an apprentice electrician, so my wages aren't super great right now. I just put myself through school and doing what I can, and life's expensive. But honestly, the more, especially the Conservatives talk about it, the less sense they make. You cut revenue, you cut your taxes, you cut your ability to pay for what we have, and they never cut anything else proportionally. So all they do, always, every single time, is increase debt, increase costs, and it's ridiculous. It doesn't work, it hasn't worked, and it's never worked. The same thing with privatization. Every time a service is privatized, your quality goes down, your costs go up, and everything gets worse for everybody. And then trying to reinstate it later costs 10 times as much and works half as well. It doesn't make sense. Rustad is completely out to lunch. He's a goddamn moron. He's completely clueless. And I'm sorry for being blunt right
we'll
there.
We'll stay away from personal attacks, though.
It's very personal, and I don't appreciate it, and I don't like it, and it sucks.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your call, Remy. Thank you for the call. Mike is on the line in Prince George now. Hi, Mike.
Good afternoon.
Hi, and tell us about affordability and your thinking when it comes to this election.
Well, I think the biggest detriment to affordability is government overspending, and I think the news media falls flat on this, explaining to the general public how it works. And, here's a simple scenario. If you go put $100 on your credit card, and then you don't pay that off at the end of the month, and all you do is keep paying the interest and keep doing that for decades, well, that $100 is now $300. So I just simply want any level of government, whether it's federal or provincial, to spend within the means of our ability to make that money. Don't spend money my grandchildren haven't earned yet. And I'd like to know right now how much the provincial government is spending just to service the debt, just to carry it, not pay it off, but just to pay the interest. And then look at that block of money and what we could have done with new programs, new spending, new opportunities that governments are hobbling future governments with.
And so how do you feel about the record $8.9 billion deficit then?
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's mind-numbing and it's scary. It's absolutely terrifying, the amount of money that governments and the provincial government specifically has gone into deficit spending. If you need to overspend, then I want to see it on a fixed term. I want to see you need $1 billion to build a new bridge. Well, then you borrow that billion, and here's your first payment, and here's when you make your last payment, just like
For
a
capital
mortgage.
spending, yeah, that would be the norm, right?
Exactly, and
Okay.
build up a contingency fund that you can use for emergencies when the fire season's bad or whatever. But don't spend money I haven't earned yet.
Mike, thank you very much for the call from Prince George. And James is next at Cobble Hill. James, thanks for calling. What are your thoughts?
Hi there. I'd just like to start by prefacing that my wife is actually running in this election.
Okay,
for
for
the
which
Greens.
part? For the Greens, okay.
Yeah, and I'll say there is no perfect party. There's no perfect system of government that we've got right now. But the one thing I will certainly say, I know she was not looking to get into politics. Like, that was not her life goal. But what we've seen with the Greens is they're the only party that have the longest term view in almost every regard. So trying to get ourselves out of problems with social issues, with housing, with forestry and resource management, all of it is much longer term. So when I see things from, let's say, the NDP, that tend to be, mega projects and, the quick job, but it's really only for the next 3 to 5 to 8 years. Managing what we have in BC so that we've got secure jobs for everyone decades into the future, if not, hundreds of years into the future is what's really turned us on to that party.
Thank you very much for your call, James.
Thank you. And I am a small business owner and farmer as well. So, just to let you know that, you don't have to align with one party just because you identify as one of these things. I encourage people to really look at the platforms.
James, thank you very much for that call and that point as well. You can go to our website, cbc.ca/BC. There's an interactive tool there where you can compare where the party stands on various issues. And yes, today we did see the election platform released by the BC NDP. The BC Green Party released their platform on Tuesday, and the Conservatives are yet to release their platform. Thanks so much for all of your calls, letting us know about affordability and how it factors into your vote in this election. You can keep emailing us as well. It's bctoday@cbc.ca. 12:48 now, and here's a story for you about two remarkable Vancouver students. They have won some big awards at a prestigious international STEM competition. This is the European Union Contest for Young Scientists. It was held in Poland last month, and it brought together 85 projects from 140 young scientists from around the world. 140. Anne Wang won second prize for her project, which is a novel therapy for cystic fibrosis. And Angela Taw won third place for her project, a system that uses AI to translate between spoken language and American Sign Language. I spoke with them yesterday. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Oh my goodness, congratulations.
Thank you.
It sounds like, you were competing with 140 scientists from around the world. How did it feel?
Yeah, it was a really amazing experience to be able to travel to Poland and Katowice and meet students from all across Europe and across the world.
What about for you, Angela?
Yeah, it was definitely such a life-changing experience. We were able to meet so many unique and inspiring people from all over the world, and it was so multicultural and just such a diverse experience.
Wow, and you won at the end of it too. So, and your projects are fascinating in and of themselves. Angela, tell us about yours. It's a system that uses AI to translate between ASL and spoken language. Tell us about it.
Yeah, of course. So my project is called S2S, and it stands for Sign to Spoken or Spoken to Sign. And it's essentially this innovation that's an end-to-end pipeline that can translate between the two languages. And it's able to do that by utilizing a combination of machine learning and statistical models.
Wow. Okay, so physically, how does it work? How would someone use it in conversation?
Yeah, so if you're trying to translate from ASL to English, then you would be using a camera camera-based device. And if you want to do it the other way, from English to ASL, you would just type in your sentence.
Wow. So we often have this debate around artificial intelligence and machine learning, like, oh my gosh, what impact is it going to have? What are the consequences? Are you worried about that at all?
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations about this with a lot of my friends and people I've met. Sorry. For me personally, I think artificial intelligence and machine learning brings us so many opportunities. It's able to expand just science generally in so many different fields. And I do think there are some risks, and obviously there's some gray areas around ethics that we're trying to work around. And as it's getting more and more introduced into our society, there's more small like gray areas we're facing. But I think all in all, it's been able to make so many different innovations that we otherwise wouldn't have reached.
And your is it invention? Your project is a novel kind of therapy to deal with cystic fibrosis. Tell us about what's behind it.
Yeah, so what I really thought about when I was going into my research was the challenges of being able to fix cystic fibrosis biofilms. So we know
What is
that
a biofilm?
Yeah, a biofilm is like a bacterial aggregate. It's like a bacterial community. And when it infects your lungs, it can be really dangerous. It can raise mortality, so your likelihood of dying by 8 times. So it's a really important challenge that we need to dedicate resources towards. And one thing that I did in my project was I tested salicylates. So an example of a salicylate is aspirin, to be able to try to investigate the effects of that on curing cystic fibrosis biofilms.
What did you find?
Yeah, I found that in many cases, especially with, Staphylococcus aureus biofilms, it's very effective. It was 99% effective. And it also worked well in combination with things like antibiotics as well.
Well, I mean, this could be really a game changer, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting therapy that we should spend more resources investigating in the future.
What makes you interested in cystic fibrosis and in healthcare?
Yeah, I think that cystic fibrosis is a really under-researched problem. I think it's a really important genetic disorder that many people suffer from, but that don't get enough time and lab space to be able to, find solutions and ways to improve qualities of patient care.
What's behind both of you, what's behind your interest in science?
Yeah, you can go first.
Angela?
Yeah, so we've both been doing science fair for many, many years, and we've been doing it we've known each other for a long time. And I feel like since the start of high school, I was always interested in technology. I feel like for me, there's just so many things you can do with just a laptop and a good data set. And I think that really started it, and especially over time with the growing advancements of machine learning, I got really into it, and that's kind of where it led me today.
Yeah. What about you, Anne?
Yeah, I've always felt very supported by the resources given to me by my school and also by the Greater Vancouver Science Fair and Youth Science Canada. When I really got into science fair in grade 6, I had a lot of teachers that gave me really useful feedback. And when I started to perform more competitively in science fair, so going to the Canada-wide science fair, for example, I got to talk to many judges that were also really interested in the fields that I was interested in, and that really got me interested.
You sound so passionate and just inspired by all the support you've received. It sounds like you've had a lot of support, but what challenges do young women like yourself still face, perhaps, in the STEM field?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. Personally, as a woman trying to enter the field of technology, even in a lot of science fairs, you can see the corner where all the technology projects are. There's quite a gender, it's this proportionate amount of women in there, and I feel like in 2024 it is kind of discouraging at first to see that, and I feel like in the future I'm definitely aiming towards hopefully inspiring other girls to enter technology, and especially right now since it's such kind of a viral field. Yeah.
Viral, okay. In the technology sense of the word. What about for you, Anne?
Yeah, of course. So I've always felt really lucky to have like amazing resources, but I think that one of the struggles of being able to uplift women in STEM is giving them the same opportunities that would be given to other individuals. And I think that being able to have the opportunity to do science fair is really valuable in launching those careers.
Yeah. Have you found that the opportunities haven't been there?
Yeah, well, I feel like personally for myself, I've really been lucky to come from a region that has a very strong science fair culture. So I go to a school that really advocates for students, doing their own research and finding those opportunities. But I know that those opportunities aren't available for everyone.
And you are a high school student in grade 12 in Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm currently in my graduating year, in senior year, yeah.
And you're now in first year university, Angela. What are you hoping to do?
Computer science.
Oh, why am I not surprised? Thank you so much to both of you. What a pleasure. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was Anne Wang and Angela Ta. They were winners at the EU contest for young scientists. Congratulations to them. Lots of emails have come in on our question of affordability in this election. Peter writes from Duncan, I had no problem getting coverage from ICBC for the damages to myself. I did not, quote, lose a limb. The no-fault insurance is very unpopular with Trial Lawyers Association. No-fault insurance saves us a ton of money on vehicle insurance and has been shown not to influence safety on the road. Barbara writes, I think the NDP under the leadership of David Eby has done a surprisingly good job of tackling the problems facing our province. I am 88 and a retired teacher. I've experienced many different forms of government in BC, and I think it helps to have someone with a high level of intelligence as well as a degree, both of which he possesses. I've been voting Green, but will vote NDP strategically this time. Sam writes, I'm still unsure who I'll vote for, but I will say this. The cost of living in BC has become so unaffordable that we've completely given up on BC and decided to move to another, more affordable province. The BC Liberals contributed to this problem. Federal Liberals made it even worse. And only option now is to leave BC. Joanne writes, I cannot vote for David Eby, and this is because his government has made the decision to dictate to municipalities about land use. This is an election issue for all communities on the peninsula of Vancouver Island. Thank you, Joanne, and all of you for your emails. Again, it's BC Today at cbc.ca.